You're listening to Mark of the Maker. Hey everybody, you're listening to Mark of the Maker, and I'm Mark Steiner, and this is episode 24 of the Mark of the Maker podcast, which I think is season 2, episode 3. We're going to have a little conversation today. This is a topical episode, and the topic is questions. So we're going to ask each other a bunch of questions about stuff, some stuff that we're interested in, some stuff that we think you might be interested in, and we'll see how that all goes. So we have our usual crew here. We have Mr. Michael Birch. You with us, man?
Here.
All right. And we have Mr. Tom Crine.
Yeah, I'm here.
And we have Mr. Sean Kendrick.
Hey.
All right. So, like I said, we're going to talk about questions. Michael, you want to explain, or you got a idea how to tell people what we're going to do this episode?
Well, we've got a bunch of listener questions, so I kind of thought, why don't we just ask each other questions? We've known each other for a long time. There's still shit I'm learning every day. So I figured there might be some questions that the listeners might want to hear, and some that might kind of teach a little bit more about each other.
So these are questions we came up with largely on our own, but in some cases we're probably going to pull from some listener questions, or they'll be the same kinds of things that we've gotten feedback from our listeners in the past. So we'll see where this goes.
Did you say this was episode 3?
Correct.
Season 2, episode 3. Yeah, we did a kickoff, and then we had Mr. Jeremy Marsh join us, which we got excellent feedback about that episode. So thanks everybody for listening and for checking that one out. So yeah, this is episode 3 of the second season, which is super weird.
All right. That was my first question. You passed.
Next.
I am done. I'm out of questions.
I am done. Next question. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's been more than a year, but it has, which is, I don't know, still odd to think about.
It's almost the end of February, and I don't understand how that happens.
Yeah, man. Springtime is coming. That's the theory anyway.
Oh, yeah.
It was springy here today.
Was it really?
It was gorgeous.
Damn.
Nice. Yeah, when I went to pick shade up, it was 56 today. Yeah.
Nice. It snowed overnight last night, so it was slippery this morning up here in Michigan.
You got my leftover weather there, Sean.
Yeah, getting your sloppy seconds on it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who wants to kick this thing off?
Sure, I will. Well, I had a question for Sean. Sean, in the past, we found out that you're we obviously know you're into music and that you're into musicals, and it made me start thinking, do you play a musical instrument?
Nope. I have absolutely no musical talent whatsoever.
False.
Okay.
We just heard Sean singing in the lead into the show.
Oh, that don't count. That was me entertaining myself.
Okay.
It was glorious.
I was just curious.
Man, I wish I did. Or maybe I don't. If I knew how to rock and roll, who knows if I'd be alive.
It's a long way to the top, baby.
What would it be if you could, though?
There you go.
What would it be? Like what genre?
What instrument?
What instrument? Yeah, what would you play?
Guitar or vocals, one of the two. Maybe bass, man. I like bass.
Yeah, I like the basses, man. They're usually pretty cool.
Any of the rest of you guys play instruments?
I did.
Back in high school?
Well, yeah, I played piano when I was growing up.
Nice.
I wish I would have stuck with it. My dad played piano quite a bit. He even played in a bunch of honky tonks. He was in a band for quite a while.
That's cool.
Still plays. So I played growing up. Then I got in the trumpet, for high school band stuff. Then got in the drums quite a bit. And now I can play the radio.
Right.
About it.
Were you in marching band?
I did do a little bit of that. That was the worst.
Why was it the worst?
What were you, percussion or trumpet?
I was trumpet. The whole get up it was as a young teenager, it was a very weird thing to do, to wear this little outfit and march along. It was
Dude,
not
you know that
cool.
marching outfit was pulling you tons of tail. You know that.
That polyester, you're sweating in
Yeah.
it.
A hat.
Clearly, Cullen
Yeah.
did not get his school spirit from his daddy.
Yeah, that boy's got some school spirit. He loves school. He
Yeah.
gets sad when they don't when school's out. He's all like, "Man, I had science today," and I'll be like,
That's
"All right, I appreciate that,
oh.
but
Unbelievable.
That enthusiasm.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, same thing. My mom plays piano. She has, and since she was very young, and so I learned to play piano because we always had a piano in the house, and so I took piano lessons for a long time when I was very young. And then I think in my intro episode way back at the beginning here, I talked a little bit about the guitar thing. So I wanted to play some rock and roll music. Yeah, that's when I offended Nick Rolfe, saying I didn't want to play keys anymore. I wanted to play guitar, and so I learned to play guitar, and kind of through some community education kind of thing, because nobody in my family knew how to play guitar. And then I bought an electric guitar because I liked rock music, and it all kind of went into the 80s metal thing from there and whatever. So yeah, I still play guitar a little bit.
Cool.
And oddly enough, we've been to Hawaii a couple times on vacation, a few times now, and Amy asked me a couple times, "Hey, you should learn how to play ukulele. You want to learn how to play ukulele?" And I never really had an interest in that, but I actually did buy a ukulele recently, and so I've been learning to play that, which is surprisingly unlike guitar.
Does it have 4 strings?
Yeah, it's got 4 strings, but they're not like on a guitar. The 6 strings go low to high, right? They go up a certain number of notes each string. And on a ukulele, the low string is actually a high string.
Oh, weird.
And then it goes low, and then it comes back up. And so, yeah, and it's tuned different. So the chord shapes are all different. So chords are funky, and pushing the strings down is a lot easier than on guitar. So that's probably why people say that instrument's easy to play. But it takes a little mind bend for a guitar guy to learn how to play it.
Interesting.
I'd like to learn banjo.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just, for some reason, a good quality picked banjo does something for me.
Oh, man. I can't take banjo.
Well,
Really?
Yeah, banjo. I've tried. I've played banjo before because I can do the whole finger roll picking thing from playing guitar, but I don't know. It doesn't do it for me.
well, I guess I won't be playing for you then.
You can play for the rest of us.
Man, I'm going to send you a Hank 3 song that may change your mind on.
There you go. Okay, I'm all ears. I'm willing to convert.
I ain't trying to convert you. That ain't my bag, man. I'm looking to expand your horizons.
You be you.
He's just trying to make you cooler.
I do like mandolin. Amy got me a mandolin a bunch of years ago for Christmas, or when she went to visit her parents down and went to the Gibson facility. So she got me a mandolin, and I like that. That's fun too, but different. And
I like the mandolin. It makes me sad.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's an emotional sounding instrument for sure. So, and so's the ukulele. I mean, that's been kind of the interesting part about it. It's one of those things that I don't know. It just sounds happy. Ukulele sounds happy when you play it. I don't know why. It just does. It's joyous,
Yeah.
but it's its own
What
thing.
a wonderful world.
Yep. Exactly. Good question, Tom. Tom, do you play an instrument?
I played alto sax in band, and I did Suzuki violin and piano as a kid.
Nice.
Now I'm trying to learn the harmonica, and that's probably the hardest thing I've ever tried to play.
Heck yeah.
It's blues harmonica is hard.
Right.
It really is, but it's fun, challenging. What you got, Michael?
I'm just wondering about the harmonica. You just blow into it, man.
Just like you just blow into a trumpet, right? Notes just come
That's
right
right.
out.
Blow into it and suck back in. 2 sounds. Boom. Done.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of music, I was going to ask.
Wow.
I'll stop.
Do the opening to the wizard.
Exactly.
Dude, it's so hard, but yeah.
All right, episode 25. Tom's going to do the intro to the wizard, and then I'll come in with the guitar. We'll be there, and Sean can sing.
Oh man,
I'll have my banjo ready by then.
And we're going to lose all of our followers.
but we may gain new ones. So long to those fair weather cocksuckers.
There you go.
Oh my!
Right. If they were real fans, they'd tune in anyway and listen to our
They'd
bad
suffer through it.
music. That's right.
What I would like to do is take the song Talk Dirty to Me by Poison, slow it down, and make it really sad and kind of depressing.
There you go.
That's money right there. People would eat that up.
With the mandolin solo.
How are
Oh,
they going
God.
to play that at a strip club? Not going to make any money off that.
You just got to find the right strip club, man. There's probably
That's
some gloomy, depressing strip club out there that would be like, yeah, that'd work for Trixie.
I think that's
Yeah.
most of them.
An emo strip club.
Yeah, it just all goes down very slowly and emotionally.
Oh, man. No, I was going to ask Sean, another music type thing. If you had one album for the shop, what would it be? Just, you got one pick.
That's a good one. Now, it would have to be a long one.
Well, I mean, you could put it on repeat. You don't got like just one listen in this
well,
theoretical
yeah, but
bullshit.
I'd still want it to be a longer album. I don't know, man. Maybe something by Sleep, maybe something by Pantera.
I figured you for picking Sleep.
I like him,
get it.
guys.
I don't even know who that is.
You and probably 80% of the rest of the folks, man.
I think they have a pretty decent following, especially like in the knife community, it seems like.
They have a loyal following.
Maybe so. Maybe that's it.
I'll have to write it down.
Sleep. Look up the album Holy Mountain. That would be your best place to start. And that's for everybody else out there, too. If you want some killer fucking rock and roll, Sleep, Holy Mountain. Look it up.
I just
all
wrote it down.
harmonicas. It's pretty sweet.
That's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm. You'll love it.
It's like Blues Traveler meets Black Sabbath.
Kinda.
Just like that.
Exactly.
Just like it. Well, man, what about you? What album you picking?
I'm going Clutch, man, all the way.
Yeah.
I'm probably going
which album?
Robot Hive?
probably Untitled,
Yeah.
their second one.
Yeah, the Moon album.
Yep.
Yeah, man, that's a good one. I had not a bad or slow or off track on it, period.
Oh hell no! That was my first introduction in the Clutch. So it was like, and I don't know. I just love that. You get into the end of that album, those songs will just kind of put you in a good mood.
Mm-hmm.
Robot Hive is still my hardcore grinding music. When I need to just zone out and grind, that's what I put on.
I've seen your post in the morning. You've been in on some Cinderella and Poison, and
I have been listening to a lot of 80s stuff, but I'm just doing regular work, so
Same here. Now, let's see. Today I listened to Accept and Cinderella and
Long
Van
Cold
Halen.
Winter.
Let's see. I was picking songs off YouTube. I know Gypsy Road was one of them. That might be.
Yeah, there you
Long
go.
Cold
That's
Winter.
off there. Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, I've been having fun with the posts, just throwing up what I'm listening to and some of the work in progress stuff. People seem to enjoy it.
well, you've been putting out some serious ass stuff, man.
Trying.
You and your no sleep affliction are really, hurting the look of the rest of us. Ooh, I only need like 2 hours of sleep a night, and I'm good.
I've been getting a little bit more than that, but yeah.
Well, that's
My-
excellent, man.
My back is feeling much better, and it's ironic now that my back doesn't hurt. I'm actually able to sleep. So,
It's not ironic. That's just pain free,
Who would've-
man.
dude,
Who would have
my
thought there would
back
be a correlation?
Yeah.
for about 6 months, my back hurt so bad I wasn't getting more than like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and I just get up and come to work. But now I'm getting 6-7 hours of sleep every night, so it's all good.
It's a lot for you.
It is. So
Now, I'll tell you what, 7 Jam, when it gets back to that Clutch album, when it hits 7 Jam, like when I'm feeling shitty or whatever, I'll actually sing that to myself in my head. That's
awesome.
Therapeutic shit right there.
why in your head, man? Nobody else is in the shop.
Well, I'm not always sad when I'm in my shop. It's when I'm in other places.
Oh, true. Okay.
I am.
You don't want me walking around just screaming, everything's going to be all right.
Everything's going to be all right.
That's my singing voice right there.
He doesn't want to depress Porter. Porter will get all upset downstairs.
He's a little bit of a sad sack.
He is a little bit of a sad sack sometimes.
He's just, if there's ever a dog that needed CBD or whatever it's called, the therapeutic part of the dope that Tom's smoking these days, it'd be Porter, man. That dog is.
I'm not smoking it, dude.
Yeah, he's not smoking those gummies, man. He's snorting them, all right?
They're they're edibles and transdermal patches.
Shoves one on each nose and just goes to work. All right, guys, listen to some Cinderella and I'm grinded. Woo!
I got to go back to Colorado soon.
Damn.
I can't believe that we got through Tom's sleep problems and his relief from back pain and Birch didn't throw some kind of reefer crack in there.
Well, I was a little late on it.
Yeah.
I had a delay.
Actually, it's massage therapy has done the best for it.
I'm sorry, what?
It's kind of crazy. Massaging
therapy, the CBD patch real hard. Yeah, I'm working it.
I use those if I'm hurting, but I'm not really hurting anymore. I scheduled once a week, every Wednesday. I go for a 1 hour massage, therapeutic massage on my back, and it's done wonders. I'm not kidding. I've done it for about 6 months now, and it's the best thing I've ever done. Highly recommend it.
I've only got one massage, and it was real awkward. It was like in hot springs.
You're supposed to lay under the sheet.
Yeah, it was weird.
Was it the part where you rolled over and were like, you missed a spot?
Yeah,
and they were like, oh, that ain't this kind of place.
She was like, roll over.
Yeah, was it at the Arlington Hotel?
I don't know. We went down there.
Historic.
Yeah, it was. It was at the historic. But we was like down in the dungeon part of it. She's like, what kind of massage? I'm like, I don't know. Deep tissue sounds manly. Do that, and it just hurt. I was
like, she beat your ass.
Yeah, it just hurt. And Abby just thought it was funny as shit. She had one of those like glowing like fiber optic lamps that you saw at the 7-Eleven in 1992. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, the hot dog warming lamp.
Yeah, turn that thing on and some shitty music. And I was just like, this blows.
Yeah,
it was very analogous of the whole town.
Seriously, we went there and did the bath thing, and it was really awkward when the big dude is like, "Hey, you want me to wash you?" I'm like, "I'm good, dude. I'm totally naked in here. Just go away."
You want me to rub your old dick?
I'm like, "I'm good." My wife freaked out, man. She was like, "That was the worst thing I've ever done." But the massage, if you get a good massage therapist, knows what they're doing, like seriously, I do believe that this is why I'm pain free at this time. So
we're good, man. That's
yeah.
I mean, we kind of need that shit for what we do because it's a lot of standing and a lot of all that.
It's hard on the body.
No way, art's pain. You can't create without it.
Yeah, come on, man.
I got plenty of internal anguish. I don't need the muscles and joints and shit. I tell you what,
you're not getting the full
me.
meal deal.
Shit. The squats and weight stuff used to help me quite a bit with back pain from standing.
Yeah,
and I found that working on the core and stuff really, helped because I was hurting there for quite a bit. Sucked.
Losing weight helps too. That's what I've been trying to do also. So
I haven't been doing any of that shit. I've been actually gaining weight this winter. It's I've been fattening up for something. Getting my summer body.
That's what I normally do. What?
I said, Tom's been slimming up, man. You looking good.
Mm-hmm.
I decided this year I was going to try to get my shop in shape and get my body in shape because I gotta have both working. So I've been trying very, very hard to.
I decided I loved good scotch and delicious pizza.
Yeah.
So that's my path I'm on.
Heck yeah.
I told myself I was going to roll in the 40 stronger than I've ever been in my life. And I turned 41 a couple weeks ago. and I'm not. It did not pan out so well for me. It begin chunking up. Got to get back into it.
I'm trying to do that for 50, dude. It's coming up fast.
Yeah.
It just gets harder.
Yeah. That's exactly my point, Mark.
That ain't shit, man.
Tom, did you say what your album was, Tom?
No, I didn't. Album. So I'd probably go with the greatest hits type thing. Probably Scorpion, one of the Scorpion greatest hits. I really like the Scorpions.
Nice.
They're pretty good.
Cool.
Right back to that 80s metal.
Dude, I love 80s rock and roll. And some stuff from the 70s, like, Journey, Fleetwood Mac, Kansas, but mostly I'm stuck in the 80s. The 90s pretty much had nothing that was worth listening to.
Oh.
And yeah.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's just harsh.
All right. We're going to take a commercial break
So-
on Mark of the Maker.
At least that's how I felt.
Nothing good.
I mean, Garth Brooks was in the 90s, I guess, but
You're not helping your argument.
No. That Chris
I didn't
Gaines guy was pretty good too.
Oh,
I didn't really listen to much 90s music during the time because it just didn't do anything. I've been going back and trying to listen to some of it and getting into some of it. But yeah, it's been a bit of a push. I don't know. 80s was awesome, and some of the 90s music just made me want to vomit. So I stopped listening to most of it. But now going back, I'm enjoying some of it. So, Bon Jovi sure didn't do good in the 90s, but
No.
they kind of sucked.
Man, when I was in 8th grade, they were pretty boss.
They were, dude. In the 80s, they were good.
I would have a rough time. It would be hard to pick a genre if you could only listen to one album.
Yeah, because it'd start to suck real fast.
Well, yeah. I mean,
It's a theoretical question. We all know we don't have one album. It's the same as like in the forums and the Facebook groups. What's your top 3? And then someone's like, here's my top 25 because you can't pick. No, pick your one.
I picked one.
I think maybe I would probably have to go old school and do like the Minor Threat discography, because they had a bunch of EPs that all turned into one long album.
Yeah.
I could do that and die happy.
I don't even know what that is.
No?
Minor
old
Thread?
Minor Threat.
Oh,
Old school DC straight edge punk rock. I probably, if I had to, because I've listened to this album on repeat probably 1,000 times. Welcome to Sky Valley, this Caius album, fantastic, right?
Oh God, it is beyond fantastic.
Yeah, legendary. So I could listen to that one.
I made a note. I'll listen to it this week. I'll check out Minor Threat.
Man, check out Caius, Welcome to Sky Valley, for real. That is a watershed album.
If you've ever driven around in the desert Southwest, Welcome to Sky Valley, it legitimately is the soundtrack to the desert Southwest. To me, I mean, you can feel it, right? Like when I listen to that album, I feel like I'm in the desert driving in the middle of the night. And I think that's what you're supposed to feel like, but they killed it. But great album. And it was a 90s album, Tom, mid 90s.
Yep.
Oh, he wasn't listening then.
Oh yeah. Because everything sucked then.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, that album wasn't easy to find when it came out.
Fair point.
I still remember the first time I heard it. It was a take notice moment.
I could probably listen to some Fu Manchu on repeat or The Sword or something like that. I could go with any of those, but if I had to pick one, I'd have to go back to my roots and do some old school DC punk rock.
I think maybe during the 90s also is when I was basically just starting to work and with my career. And I'll be honest, I don't think I listened to much music at all in the 90s because with nursing, I was working 12-hour shifts and I was broke as hell. So most of the time I was working 5 12s a week or something. And so you're sleeping most of the rest of the time. So I probably wasn't listening to much music at all, in all honesty.
But you had time for Garth.
Well, I was in college then, and I did love some of the early Garth Brooks stuff. You don't like Garth Brooks? I mean, I'm not going to listen to country music now all the time, but I do like some of the classic Garth Brooks and George Strait stuff.
No Garth for me.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah, I can do Cash.
I like Johnny Cash.
Yeah, Cash is a whole different story.
You don't put Johnny Cash in a rusty cage with Garth Brooks. Hell to the no.
What about George Strait?
He's all right. I like him for what he's done. His music doesn't do anything for me, but I like George Strait for being George Strait, if that makes sense. You
probably like Garth Brooks when he was a rock and roll guy.
That's Chris Gaines.
Yeah. That was so
It was a secret.
That's some funny stuff, man.
Nobody knew.
Yeah. Let me just toss an emo haircut. No one will know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So Michael asked a question. Tom asked a question. Sean, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, this one's directed at Tom. All right, man. You sent me that knife with the diamond wood handle. Handle looks great. How did you finish that, dude? Because, I mean, it's silky, but it's not slippery like a melon seed. It looks good. What did you do there? What's your process?
So I've changed what I've done as far as doing wooden handles over the last 5 years. I took everything to the buff, and if you take wood to the buffer, it ruins it, in my opinion. And it took me a long time to figure that out because what happens is the grain gets full of compound, and you end up with something that is overly shiny. So
yeah,
basically what I've developed is a system where it's a lot of handwork. So I take it to 400 grit like I would micarta or anything else. And just like I would with micarta, I start hand sanding. So I start at 400, unless I have, sometimes you know how with the small wheels you get ripples. And if I do that, I'll drop down to 320. But I use, the big sanding blocks you can get like at the hardware store. Mm-hmm. They're like real thick rubber. I cut those up on the saw, and I grind them into little sanding blocks so they're flat and they're backed. And I'll use those to try to keep everything flat so it doesn't get dips or anything. And basically, I just do a pretty quick progression from 400 to 600 to 8 or 1,000, usually 1,000. I think that's what I did on these because I was at 800. And then at that point, I use just straight mineral oil. I'll put it on there, and the paper that I used last, so that 1,000 grit that's kind of loaded up, I'll use that, and it doesn't take long, for each grit, maybe a few minutes. But I basically am rubbing pretty quick and heating the wood up a little bit. That mineral oil kind of soaks in and fills the grain and everything and colors it, and the little paste that you're making with the wood. And then I take a paper towel and I kind of briskly clean it off and then kind of hand buff it to make it warm and get it all clean. And then I just put a hard floor. Yeah, kind of burnish it. And then I put a hard floor wax on it. Brie wax or something like that, and let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes and then come back with the paper towel and buff it off, and you're done. And I think in my opinion, that's the best finish that I've been able to find that is a reasonable time also.
I like it a lot.
You can do a knife in 15, 20 minutes pretty easy. And it's a really nice satin with a lot of depth to it. And that's it.
I did that desert ironwood that way after I talked to you about it. And it was my favorite look that I got out of desert ironwood ever. Yeah. Like you said, that satin. It's so nice. It's the same with like anything. You don't want too much reflection.
Yeah.
You can't see the grain if you're just staring at something shining back at you.
Well, I think sometimes it's really easy to get too shiny.
Oh yeah.
And, sometimes we're like birds, like birds like shiny stuff, but, the satin, if you can pull a nice satin off it, to me, it looks better. What I'm doing right now is what is the favorite that I've done so far. And I've experimented a lot, and it seems to work the best. So there's my trade secret.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're supposed to say patent pending at the beginning of this explanation, Tom.
No, it's all free source. It's good. I if you can help people in the industry, it's good.
Oh yeah. I think I talked about on here about a wheel I found for Micarta. It gives it sort of that same satin look that I found that I enjoyed quite a bit. Because I had the same issue with Micarta. I don't like when it's super, unless it's an old school like Randall or something like that. I don't like the super shiny.
Yeah, I don't either. I use a soft felt wheel for Micarta and stuff, and it gives a satin finish also.
Yeah. This was a sort of like was it like 1,000 grit? No. It was more of a flap wheel type thing. Gave it a real soft satin.
Yeah.
Yep.
I use a brown, really waxy. I think it might have carnauba in it for my Micarta.
For your felt wheel?
Yeah. The felt wheel won't do anything by itself, but it's like a light tan, super waxy compound.
Very nice. But so is it Packwood or is it Diamond Wood?
I think, I can't remember. I think those are actually might be Diamond Wood, but it's the same thing. Tomato. But yeah,
tell the
class
what you did. Those. Tell them what you did to us and for us.
I sent all three of you guys a little kitchen utility or cheese knife with some multicolored diamond wood handles. I thought they turned out pretty good, honestly.
It's actually pretty badass. You're one of the only people I know that can use some damn diamond wood and make it look cool.
It was pretty fun. I laughed when I got them done. I was like, damn, these look pretty good.
They ain't bad at all.
No, it was definitely like the whiplash reaction. Like I came out of the box and I snorted because it made me laugh immediately. Like, look at that son of a sent us a freaking Packwood knife. And then it's like, oh, this is really nice, man.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Very cool. This is what you call your KUD, right? Your cutie knife. Is that what this is?
Yeah, it's kitchen utility. Yeah, it's like a cheese knife or something you open pack of chicken with or whatever.
Dude, I'm telling you, this is my new desk knife. That's what this is.
That AEBL is thin and sharp, man. It takes a great edge.
Yeah, good dude. I was impressed with it.
And they're it's pretty damn tough. I think AEBL is one of the toughest steels that we use, and nobody really thinks of it, but it's close to S7 in toughness, and you can take it pretty hard and pretty thin. Pretty amazing shit.
It was very kind of you to do, Tom. Thank you very much. It's super, super nice.
Yes, thank you.
Hell yeah, it was.
My pleasure.
All right, so I'm going to ask a question since he hasn't been asked a question yet, I'm going to ask Michael a question.
What do you got?
That I kind of know the answer to, but I'm not sure everybody does, and I think it'd be a good thing for you to talk about. So, you got this robotic assistant a little while back, right? Mm-hmm. And so I know the first time I went to visit Michael at his house and shop and worked on a knife and stuff, there was the design process was very analog, right? For how you come up with a new design and then work it out. And I know it's a little different now because you're drawing on computer and stuff. Maybe talk a little bit about how that has changed for you, like going from when there was zero computer involved to now there's much more to the story and more things to think about. How did you work your way through that difference?
Well, that was also part of the reason for buying this CNC was to force myself to learn CAD and CAM, because I've been trying to learn it for, I think, 5 years or some shit. And it's like, if you don't have, you're making knives, you don't have time to be trying to learn new shit. It's tough, or at least it was for me. And we were starting our kids' stuff out and all that. So it was real hard to start a family and try to learn new stuff and make knives and do this. So I kind of bought the machine to force myself to learn it. And I tell you what, the learning some sort of CAD is probably one of the most beneficial things that I think a knife maker can do. You can make such minute changes and on even how the pin placement or your pivot pin and stop pin placement. Just small changes there can make huge changes in how it looks and how it operates and what you can get away with. You find you can get away with, a pin here and still have to do the things you want to do. Like I hate having the stop pin round out showing when it's closed. I hate having, like I've talked about before, the, detent ball showing the track. I hate a lot of personal preference crap. And that damn train, man.
It ain't going to stop.
Yeah. But it allows me to really kind of get in there and really finalize stuff really well. I still have to draw on paper first. I've only done, I think, one design like straight on the computer, and that was done, out of nothing. It's really hard for me to look into space, of the computer and not have any sort of hand reference, or it's just different for me. I don't know if it's because I didn't learn that way. I have to sketch it, scan it in, trace it, and then I could start playing around with the geometry and really making it work like I want it to work. And I think now I'm able to make better knives. And as far as the process and repeatability and stuff like that, and that's the part that I'm most happy about. And that's what I enjoy the most, is that I can actually try to make knives that will last longer, be better, work better, all that stuff. And I enjoy that part greatly. And I enjoy the drawing aspect of it, the design aspect, probably more than anything else. I love draw shit. That's my work to not really work. I'll get in there, when I'm like need to work but don't really want to, I'll get in there and start designing shit.
Yeah, I remember you saying that was something that you sometimes do when you come back from a show, right? Where it's kind of like,
yeah,
oh, the show's over. Okay, I gotta ease my way back into doing stuff. And sometimes you just pick up the pencil and start drawing.
Oh, hell yeah. And getting on that computer, because then you can just start drawing gadgets and shit. And that's fun. One of the funner parts about it is making these little bottle rockets and stuff. You get like machining practice, you get drawing practice, then you make them, then you get to have fun with finishes. That's like where I get to practice different finishes, different little wheels you buy. Because, we talked about MSC catalog and how huge it is. There's a ton of like different wheels and jewelry, rouges,
Rio
things
Grande.
Like yeah, all the little things you can buy and be like, I wonder what that thing does. Then I wonder what it does at this speed with this material at this. There's a million different configurations of how to finish shit, and we barely tapped any of them. So it's fun to play with that sort of shit.
Rio Grande is a great reference or resource for you guys.
Oh God, yeah. For
you
finishing,
got great tools and finishing stuff. Yeah.
We get very stuck on I don't know how this became CAD to CAM to finishing, but here we are. But the finishing stuff, look at like how the jewelers are doing it, and that's why some of those jewelry guys do a great job on these knives, because they're taking those practices and bringing them. Because, we look at knives, we're like, oh, it's either bee blasted handle or orange peeled or whatever. There's a ton of different stuff to do.
Yeah.
That we
like Pat Pruitt.
Yeah, I was going to mention
Pruitt's
Pat.
It's a good example of it. Jody Muller, my friend, he's always got little tiny weird bobbins and gadgets and doodads. He's like, oh, I'll spin this. And, you can tell who comes from the jewelry side, because they'll do half their shit with a Fordham tool versus, a big buffer. And, it's interesting.
So for non-knife maker people, a Fordham is like a overgrown Dremel, right? Like a long flex shaft polishing tool, basically.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
pro level.
You pretty much, but it only runs at like 30K, I think. And the Dremel does a lot of stuff just fine.
Yeah.
That being said, I still like my Fordham, but I've got a damn Black & Decker RTX I've had for like 12 years. It won't die.
Mine wouldn't either. I just gave it away. I was like, get it out of here.
I mean, shit, it still works. It probably touches every single knife I've made for the past 12 years. It just, it's fucking crazy. I still put my finger things, little, inside the lock, little grooves with my little 1 carbide tool on that RTX Dremel type thing.
What's the, this is probably neither of them. You have like a little air control.
That's the
dental lathe.
Yeah, but that's from GRS. That's their high speed, low torque type of air engraver.
Engraving tool, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you guys remember back in like 2005, 2006, engraving shit with an air tool was a real big fucking thing.
Right.
Remember those times, guys?
Yeah, the frame locks. Matt Kuchar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Matt was all over.
He was doing a bunch of cool stuff.
Lee Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I found that I sucked at it. So
I didn't have any talent. None.
I did some with like stippling and stuff like that. And that was kind of fun.
I wish we could do the fizz, man. Matt did the coolest stuff with the fizz, I think.
The fizz was cool. And then of course the Brazilian dudes were taking off with their kind of carving. You know, it was a next level type of anodizing carving sort of thing. And they still do some of that stuff, you know.
Yeah, they're
which is really cool. Lala and Flavio, for those that don't know, really cool pieces.
Yeah, Rick Lala. Yeah.
Yep.
And his son, was it his son or was it, because it was Rudy that did a lot of the.
Oh, maybe it was his son, I think.
Did a lot of like dragon's head kind of clips and stuff. And
highly sculpted.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Oh, fuck. Yeah, so cool. There's just a lot of skill level there.
So you did some stuff. I know there's a few knives out there that you did, Michael, where you had like stag on the handle and you kind of like tried to carry what looked like a stag, groove shape into the bolster and stuff. That was all with that air graver kind of tool?
Yeah. I had to do that because I couldn't stand, because you have this, you know, I was doing a lot of dovetails. So you'd have a really sharp edge if you didn't have something butted up against it. And it drove me crazy because I love stag, but I can't stand that you're not having a perfect fit. So I would make it carry on to the titanium or whatever.
Well, it seems like a lot of the old school makers would leave the stag up high and then have like a 1/4 inch rounded, you know, off the bolsters, which I never really cared for that.
Oh, I do not. That is one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
One of the many. That more of a 2006 pet peeve, because when stag was a little bit more acceptable on boulders. Yeah, that too. But we kind of hit a little tiny spot where it was kind of cool for tactical makers to do it. But you saw a lot of really tall handles, really wide.
A lot of people don't understand how to work stag.
Take it from the back.
Natural material. Yep. You got to work it from the back.
Take it all from the back. It's kind of like
bark is what you want.
Yeah, kind of like those old gasser cars. I think you said something about drill holes in them till it breaks, and then go back and, you know, in the next one drill one less hole.
Drill one less hole, exactly.
Yeah, same with that stag. You grind it till you grind through. The next one you don't grind quite so far.
Right. Yeah, and there was no finite element analysis going on in some early 60s, late 50s gassers and stuff. So I think that's interesting. And I know people that follow your Facebook group know that because you talk about it sometimes, but it kind of speaks to the misconception or misconception is the right word. Sometimes that people have that, oh, you know, somebody bought a CNC machine or uses a CNC machine. That means that the knives they come out like done. And I know for a fact in your case, that's really, really, really untrue. They might be closer to final form, or they might be, you know, kind of like water jet ×3 closer to net shape in the end. But when it comes down to it, the shapes and the designs are all still pencil on paper.
Oh yeah, no, it's a longer process. It would be easier to just have shit water jet and ground out than to do this process for me. But I get more flexibility with creativity on this process, and that's what gets me. That's what I enjoy about it, is the fact that I can make what I want, and I can just keep digging and digging into the creative process, I guess, and see what I can come up with. And
exploit the capability, right?
It's like a fucking car with a big ass engine that I can't ever reach the potential of it. And that's
exactly right. The potential, because it's like we keep doing new stuff, and it's like, wow, this is really cool. This is awesome. And then we'll do something else new, and it's like it's crazy.
Yeah, and there's people that do make stuff that comes off looking fantastic, And that's kind of cool. That's an art in itself. The people, because that's like a challenge you see going around, like the mirror finish challenge and shit on aluminum. You know, people seeing tweaking. It's almost like go back to a race car. It's kind of like tweaking an engine. It's getting that speed, feed, coolant sort of mix just right to get this finish that they want off of it. Not for any practical reason for most of these machinists, but just it's more of a pride thing to be like, look at how, you know, this looks and shit. Which is that's an art in itself too.
Right.
Well, I know, Michael, I think we both have kind of the same philosophy. We want our machines to make parts, and then the finished product, I don't want anyone to know. I don't want them to be able to tell it came off the machine versus one of my ones that I built totally in the shop with no machine. I want you not to be able to tell the difference, other than if I'm doing something that I couldn't do in the shop.
I get it, you know, but truthfully, the more I dig into it, the more I also appreciate just because there's guys out there that didn't come from any sort of knife making background and they're doing purely machine parts. And I can actually appreciate those now that I didn't kind of used to until I started getting into this, where I'm like, holy shit, that's a whole different art that's different from what I, you know, traditionally liked or did, but that's different. And it's cool that they're able to achieve greatness in that area of knife making.
It's another tool.
It is another tool, and I appreciate all aspects of
wizards with them.
Hell yeah. Richard Rogers.
Yeah, that dude.
That dude is good.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a great example, right? It's like we just talked about. Some people can pick up an air graver, a hand tool that, you know, where they start to carve by hand, and that's a skill, right? That's a talent or a capability, and they can do really, really special and cool stuff with it because they have that. And and having the ability to do some stuff on the machine, I think is the same kind of ability. It's just
different tool,
wired up a little bit different way. And in the end, hey, if you can do some really super cool shit, why not?
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe we harp on this a lot, maybe because, you know, we have CNCs and stuff, but it just, like you said, it's another tool in the toolbox. And I'd like to have every tool in that toolbox. I want to learn engraving. I want to learn all that shit. So I can say, you know, make the coolest knife possible. That's really all I want to do.
I've got a question for you, Michael, that kind of leads into that. You've got the CNC. If you could had the ability to make another large purchase, I'm not talking about a small tool or anything like that, and you had the room, what would you get other than a CNC?
Oh, I know.
A big tool?
No, just a large purchase. So like same.
Shit, man, I'd buy that. Are you justifying your wanting a laser by asking me if I want a laser?
Yes.
Because you know I want a laser. You know.
Well, I actually didn't know if you would go. So I've got a couple tools on the list I want, and the laser is one of them. I didn't know where you would go, honestly.
A CNC lathe would be nice.
Exactly. Or
I would love it. I would love it. CNC. I would love to make every pivot and every piece myself. I'd love to get like if I can find an old I just forgot the name of the HLV lathes. God, I just forgot the name of them. Carry on while I Google it.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the tools I'm looking at is a big surface grinder. I would love to have a CNC lathe. After yesterday, I really, really, really want a new laser, but a laser period.
There's so much.
I had the Tykma guy came in and he demoed the mini lathe, and that thing is freaking cool.
See, that's why I don't like about like looking at like Pat Pruitt stuff, because he'll be like, because I mean, you can color your titanium, you can, if you get a high enough powered laser, you can. There's so many things you can do.
You can color steel with it.
Oh, just imagine the fun that you could have with that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So the one we're looking at is the Mini Lathe XL. It's got a lot of cool features that the others don't. And you can get a 50 watt. Yeah, I mean, the 20 watt will do everything you need. The 50 just does it 70% faster.
Yeah.
And they do it. They do a 70 watt, but yeah, it's a fiber laser. But yeah, they're not cheap. I think the price quote came back on the one we want spec'd out like we want, and it's like $60,000.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
no, they're not cheap at all. But you've also, this is where business begets business, because you've got folks working in your shop. You know, if you get the laser, then you can be outsourcing work for other makers.
Yep.
And because that's where I think you really have to kind of get your money out of them with, because no, we don't need it for fucking just putting our logo on.
Well, it would probably save me enough time that it would pay for that. I spend a lot of time doing logos.
Well, your output's a lot higher. And personally, for like the V4, V5, whatever comes up next, it'd be great for that, but I can't justify, you know, for me, I'd probably end up with a 30,000 whatever laser for 200 knives, you know.
Yeah.
But I want to justify it so hard.
Think about how cool it would be for merch. And yeah, I mean,
if you have someone running that thing,
pods.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I still couldn't justify it, but yeah, outsourcing work, I think, is where you can make money. And yes, merch, you know, coming up with your own merch, little, you know, tie pieces cut out and on your CNC, then colored up.
Well, even like stainless travel mugs, we looked into that. And by the time we had somebody else do it, there was no profit. They made all the money, you know, the person running the laser. So I don't know.
But you can be doing that for other people, and you have somebody in your shop doing it, and be another source of income for Tom Krein Worldwide Enterprises, LLC Incorporated.
Yeah. We're trying to figure out how to do it, but right now it's just a wish list thing.
It's a different purchase for sure.
Yeah. I think it's one of those tools where if you're doing enough volume, like Tom's doing, where you're doing enough volume where you can justify it just based on logo work, right? Or get almost there just based on doing logos and stuff, then that's cool. But there's such cool capability there, right? I mean, you can if you have enough power, you can do stuff like, you know, reverse logoing pins and handles, and you know what I mean? Like the shit that Brad's been doing, right? Brad Southard, right? Like relieving pivots and doing, you know, backspacer stuff and material removal things that are pretty damn cool. So
yeah, a lot of fun to be had. But yeah, I don't, you know, I would spend 30, 40 grand on something I would basically put checkering on a backspacer. You know, it'd be like that would be my level of production that would happen with that. And I'd be like, cool, I did it with the laser though.
Because lasers are cool.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you on the lathe also. I would that actually might be our next purchase instead of the laser.
CNC lathe, or one of those, a Harding HLV would be awesome. I would love to have one of those, because I also love
a manual lathe.
Yeah, man, I love
a manual Hardage.
Hardage.
Is that what you said?
Harding.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I also love vintage tools. That's the weird juxtaposition that I'm in. I love old school vintage tools, and I love modern, awesome, you know, tools.
Yeah.
I like them all.
Me too.
And Tom, I want them all.
Right there with you.
For sure, the laser thing is fun. I went down to Hinderer's place one time when Rob Orlando was there still, and Rob said, "Oh, hey, we got this laser thing over there," and it was a Tykma mini lathe, and he's like, "Yeah, we have some settings and we run marks on blades and stuff with it, but you know we can do some other cool stuff." And I said, "Cool, can I play with it?" And, "Oh yeah, go ahead. If you find anything really cool, just." Right, exactly. If you find anything cool, write it down. So, I basically, next time I visited, I brought like a gallon Ziploc bag full of whatever shit that I had laying around. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to laser that with some kind of logo or my name or something goofy. And yeah, so I spent a couple days just jacking with that laser, just playing around, and it's
They're
very
really
interesting.
cool, right?
Yeah, you can do some neat stuff. Like you said, you can do color, you can do relief if you let it in there long enough for enough passes, enough power. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. What about you, Sean? If you could add one major tool, I think I know what it would be, but what would it be?
And right now, a lathe.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a lathe to play around with just because I like lathe work.
You got that lathe fever after threading that, doing that tool threading, didn't you?
Man, I've done most of my lathe projects already and got them out of the way.
So what would you get? Right now, I'm looking at one. I have one, but I'm just curious what you would get.
Man, for the money right now, probably like a 13-inch Grizzly.
Yeah, I would get a Grizzly also. I would get they have a gunsmith lathe, and everybody I've talked to says that's the one to get.
I could see that. I've been looking at that one in the catalog real hard. It looks like it takes care of my needs
pricey,
very well.
But it has a big through spindle, like inch and a quarter, inch and a half or something, so you can do stuff through the spindle. And I think Bob Dozier has one. He said he liked it. Billy Cho has one. They say they're really, really good.
Yeah, that's the one that I've heard has been a really solid lathe for them. But it's still, what, $4,000 or something?
Yeah, I think it's like $4,000 or they make two different sizes. I think one's like 3 and one's like close to 5. I think 35, 5 or something like that.
But you toss a DRO on that, and you've got pretty much everything you need. You know.
Yeah,
I think it comes with a DRO.
It does.
Ooh.
One of them does for sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, Sean, you got a question you wanted to ask?
All right, Tom, one of the things I really admire about you is your ability to grind. And I was wondering what your belt progression is when you grind. What do you start out with? Where are you finishing up at? And what grits do you use from beginning to end?
Okay. So this has changed a little bit recently because some of the belts that I've used have been discontinued, which is really disheartening. It's disheartening. It's the 977, the 3M 977 60 grit has been where I've always started. And that has recently been discontinued. So
I'll mix in some music of sadness and disappointment right about here.
Right?
Yeah, what happened to it?
They just quit making them, I guess. So I've been a big creature of habit. So this is the same belt I've been using for 20 years. Even though the new stuff comes out for the last forever, I've been using the same belts. And I've tried some different stuff. You know, some guys are like, you need to rough them in at 36 grit. For me, that was a horrible idea. I hated it. Just get a lot of grit in the face and scratches that are almost impossible to get out. And then I had some people like Bob Terrazula, I think starts with the 80 grit. And I think Luke does that too. And I tried that and it's just not aggressive enough. So for me, when I start a grind, basically I start, once I've got my center lines done and I've done the basically Scandi down to 30,000 center, once my blade's centered, I start with a 60 grit. And
explain that process to folks, what you were just saying.
Okay. So when I center the edge, basically if you just throw the blade up there and start grinding, it's really hard to keep your edge centered because there's no reference points. So what I do is I use a carbide tipped height gauge and a granite plate, and I set it so that I get two lines 30 thousandths apart right down the middle. So basically I'll take it to a plate, an angled platen set at about 12.5 degrees. Well, exactly at 12.5 degrees. And basically I grind to the line, and that gives me 30 thousandths edge down the middle that is perfectly centered. And from that point, I start my grind. And that does a couple things. One, the ceramic belts we use are super expensive. So basically, if you start with a sharp edge on a brand new ceramic belt, you've just basically killed about 60% of the use. Because that sharp edge just starts shearing off your grit, and pretty soon you've got a $10 belt that won't do anything. And for me, it's all about getting it done in a timely manner, but also I feel like I push my belts further than most people. And part of that is a variable speed grinder. I also grind most of my stuff, not all, but most of it on a very hard wheel. I grind on a 14-inch 90 durometer serrated wheel, which is pretty hard. And that also helps my belts go longer. And so my personal belt progression is after that center line is there, I start with a 60 grit belt, and I'll rough my grinds in. And basically what I'm doing is about 85 to 90% of the work. I try to get my plunges as close as I can, but I don't try to set the plunges on the 60. They're very stiff. They're an X weight, and they just don't really do what I want most of the time. And so I'll rough in a batch of 20 on one 60 grit belt, using a push stick and on the 60 grit, and dunking it quick. One pass or two passes, dunk it. Never let it get hot. After that, I go to a 120, but I usually use a pretty worn out 120. So when I'm grinding on 120, I set the plunges with a 120 that's been used for grinding, but still has sharp edges. So I'll set my plunges at that point using the 120. So I use a Sharpie to write on the blade. So I'll write, it's a 60 grit, and then I put a slash in 120. And that means I've set the plunges with the dull 120. And I could pretty much set about 10 to 15 plunges on, knives worth of plunges on one of those belts before it's toast. And then I use a 120, and I use the, what is it, a 907, I think, 3M 907 120. It's J-Flex, so it's flexible. But I usually don't, after the plunges are set, I try not to get into the plunges anymore. And I'll take the whole batch to 120. And then I do the same thing with the used 220. Same belt, just 220. And so I get a 220 grind, make sure the plunges are good. Basically, I try to do all my grinding on the 60 and 120. The 220, I'll refine the plunges slightly and do a little bit of scratch refinement. And then after that, it's all scratch refinement. And I go to the yellow Klingspor 400 grit. And I used to use the red ones. I feel the yellow ones work better. I don't know if it's just my mind or not, but yeah. For the 60 grit, what I've gone to now, so I just had to order belts. Like, I just got my order in this week, and I'd started using some of the Cubitron 2 belts. I don't know if you guys have used those.
Yeah. The last order I got, it was all QB2s. No, they're
they're burgundy. Yeah, they're
brownish red.
Okay.
Now here's the thing on the Cubitron 2. If you don't know this, there's two different 60 grits. So hold on just a second. I got the invoice right here, I think. Yeah, so there's two different Cubitron 2 ceramic belts. There's the 984 and the 967. Well, about 3 months ago, I ordered some of these Cubitron 2s to try because I'd heard about them, and I got the 967. And I was like, holy crap, these things are awesome. I reordered and I got the 984s, and I was like, these things suck. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, they're Cubitron 2s. I did not realize there's two different ones, and there are night and day difference.
Well, is one an X weight backing and the other a J weight?
I think they're both the same weight, but they feel different. The 984 feels sharper, but the 967 cuts about 3 times longer. It's the weirdest thing ever. I don't know. And I asked Scott, I was like, hey, Scott, who's got True Grit, I'm like, well, what's up with two of these? I didn't realize this before. And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, what's the difference? What are the better uses? He's like, I don't know. Wow. So that was pretty helpful. But I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say, don't get the 984s. It's the 967s.
No, I keep the 967s in stock. I mean, they're a great belt for a lot of stuff.
Best 60 grit belt I've ever used.
Oh man, I use them in 120. Now
the 120 is the 984, I think. There's only one Cubitron 2 120.
Yeah. Okay, then I'm using a 707 in the 120 also.
Yeah, the 707s were good, but the Cubitron 2, it's weird because they're different, and the 120 Cubitron 2 works really damn good, but the other one, it was weird. And I'll double check those numbers. If I'm wrong, I'll make a note in the show notes. But that's pretty much my progression. I go to 400, and at that point, I go to the buffer and I do satin finish and part of the reason I started doing this with the buffer, and I use a wheel with black compound, but a smeared finish is much more corrosion resistant, is what I found. So if I do a hand rub finish or if I do a belt finish, it's more likely to rust than it is if I do the smeared finish that I do. So I think it looks better, but overall, the reason I started doing it was more for performance versus the look. The water will beat up on it.
For the black compound, what sort of wheel are you using for the black compound?
So kind of funny. I'm the only person I know that does this, but I use a structured abrasive wheel like a 3M or Norton wheel. Mm-hmm. And I've been using the same one forever. And the reason I use it, so for a while I was trying to mess around with them without the compound, and they will overheat your blade in a New York second. It's just like you got to be super light and really careful, and you can blend it a little bit. But if you try to really buff out anything with a 3M or a structured abrasive wheel, it'll burn. I found it by putting this black stainless compound on it, it won't burn. For some reason, it lubes it just enough. It gets smoking hot, so you have to I use a paper towel type push stick with it, but it will not overheat the blade, and it gives it that beautiful smeared finish that is very corrosion resistant.
Huh.
Now,
I experimented a lot with that, and that's what I came up with. Another trade secret. Everybody's getting my secrets this time.
What are you talking about, structured abrasive? Are you talking about like almost the very kind of fine, not a flap wheel, but it's very like a woven kind of wheel?
Yeah, they're woven. It's like a Norton Beartex or a 3M, or there's generic ones. I use them day in, day out for deburring also.
Mayo told me about that. He used to use it. I don't know if he still does or not, but a long time ago, he said he used it on the bevels. And I tried it. I couldn't get it to work for whatever I was doing, but who knows what the hell I was doing at the time.
Yeah, I played around a lot early on, just trying to come up with new stuff. I tried compound on some of the like 3M belts, the structured abrasive belts. Mm-hmm. I tried all sorts of stuff, and this is what works the best for what I've found. And it does a pretty good job of removing scratches and blending everything. And if you're going at a 400, if you go to 220, if you're only going to 220 grit, which I've started doing on a couple different models, then if you'll use the structured abrasive without compound and a light touch, it does almost the same thing, but it leaves a little coarser finish, which is kind of what I was looking for.
Nice.
Does really nice.
I think I use 707s. I think that's the one I use for, which is weird. I only usually know them by their color.
Yeah. The 707 is what I use for 120 and 220.
120 and 220. Those things last forever.
They're J-Flex. They work really good. And I'm very careful with my belts. I don't use them for anything else. So I have a pegboard near my grinder. So I got a place where I keep new belts, and then I have a place where I keep belts that I grind. If I use it, I only use them for blade grinding until they get to a point where they're no longer good for that. Then they go somewhere else. And I never if you try to grind it, I've had people come up and grind something on my grinder when I wasn't looking or whatever, and it'll put a groove down the belt. That belt's shot for grinding. It's so frustrating to try to get a straight line.
You're screwed. It's kind of like when you have a beard and you shave it down. You're going to make every single type of like haircut out of your beard as you're cutting it down. Same with belts.
That's the most fun ever.
Yeah, you have that belt for it. Top tier is the grinding the bevels, and then it goes down to such and such. And in the end, it's like grinding, micarta, and each level
because it
of
costs
use.
so damn much money.
Yeah, you got to get the most out of every single part. And at the very last thing you do is profiling, or for me, is profiling something horizontal because it puts
and then you
grooves
throw
in
it
the
away.
belt. Yeah. Then no, not. You look at it a little bit for a while and be like, you got any life left?
Yeah,
in
you got to
No?
have a stack of them, and then they build up to the point where they fall off whatever you've got them hung on, and they're all over the floor, and you're pissed off, and so you're like, screw it, I'm just not worth it, and you throw them all in the trash, and then you start over.
Yeah, exactly.
At least that's how it works for me.
Well, yeah,
they like pile up. They fall off and pile around the grinder, and you're pissed off, so you leave them there for a couple days, and then you're tripping on them, and you're like, oh, crap. All right, I'll take care of it.
They go from
and then you try to save some belts, then you never use them again because you make more, right?
Anything sticking out, they get hung on. The wheels of the surface grinder, they go there. Then you're like, shit, I got to use the surface grinder. So you lug a stack of belts somewhere else.
One of the things we talked about in our earlier episode was what speed are you running your grinder? So Tom, you're going through all those different grits. Are you running them at the same speed? Do you have like a standard speed, or do you adjust at each grit?
So I don't know the surface speed per minute of any of my grinders. And that's the thing. I've got multiple different grinders in the shop. They're all variable speed, but the motors might be slightly different, or the drive wheels are slightly different, whatever. And so, it's hard, but like for the grinders that I use day in and day out are my Dozers. They're 1700 RPM, variable speed, 2 horse. And I think I've got a 6-inch drive wheel on them. So if you got something similar, you can figure it out. But I run about 50% or less all the time, unless I'm doing Kydex, I turn it up to 75%, or if I'm sharpening, I turn it up to 75%.
Yeah.
When I grind, and it also depends on what I'm grinding. The more difficult the grind, usually the slower I turn it, and the finer the belt. So if I'm just grinding standard, I'm running about 50% when I 60, and then I turn it down to about 40%, 35 to 40 for the rest of it. It allows me to put more pressure without risking burning or doing too much at one time. And really, when you're hollow grinding, pressure is where it's all about. It's you need the pressure to get in the groove and keep it in the groove and not get facets. That's a common new maker mistake, is not using enough pressure and using too much speed.
Yeah.
I'd say I'm about exactly with you on the same thing. About 50%. I don't know what the new, it's hard to tell the speed surface feet per minute with the wheel and all that shit. But I think I go about 50%. I'm probably a very similar machine as far as drive wheel and stuff.
Do you slow down as you go up in grit?
Yes. When I'm getting to the 400
complexity.
400, 600, I get them down to about 10%, 15%. I don't need to be hauling ass at that point.
Well, and it also depends, I think, what belt you're using.
Yeah. Well, some of them, they thrive off of speed, and, some of the ceramics do. And I know that's I'm probably not using them to their potential, but I can't, I don't want to be out of control of my grinding.
Right. And some of the structured abrasives, I don't like structured abrasives as a general rule, because I am not patient enough. A lot of the structured abrasives work better with less pressure and slower speeds. And
like the Trizax and stuff like that.
Yeah, I hate that stuff. Me personally, I know a lot of guys use them and love them, but I don't have the patience for it. And just good old ceramics seem to work pretty good for me.
Yeah. They do work well for longevity, as long as you don't, like you said, put a groove in them. But
they suck for a long time.
But the yellows and stuff like that, and the blues, the Hermes and the Klingspor, those 400, you get like 2, blade and a half out of it maybe, and you're like, well, that was done.
Try the yellow Klingspors. Have you tried those?
That's what I use. That and the blue Hermes.
They work the best, I think.
I even like the scalloped. I like the scalloped ones because it can really kind of feather out the edge. Different plunges, man.
Yeah, you grind. That's what I'm saying. You grind different. So,
what do you got, Mark?
All right, so Sean, this is kind of a esoteric question, but I'm curious. You went back to school. You're kind of. It feels like you have a vision of where you think you want to go with Kendrick Knives and kind of what's happening here. You wouldn't invest the time in going to school and trying to learn some new skills if you didn't. So you want to talk a little bit about where you think you want to head with the whole knife making thing? I mean, is the end goal to do more knives and get bigger, or is it to really just expand your skill set and do what you want to do, or where are you trying to go with this whole thing?
Man, I want to hit on both of those. I want to make more knives. I want to have more of my designs accessible to people. And just overall, I want to be a better knife maker, period.
Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. Props to you too, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you.
It seemed like you really, I mean, so sometimes people make a production knife deal and it's like, it's a pay the bills kind of thing. And I think that's true no matter what in the end, right? It's important because it's like a cash flow thing, but it seemed like, at least from the cheap seats, that's what it looked like with your Bad Blood deal that you did, right? Was that it was about making the stuff more accessible at a price point that people could afford. And it seemed like you enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, man, it was nice having knives in people's hands and having people enjoy them, and me not fucking stressing myself to death over every one of them that goes out the door.
Right.
So we're trying to work toward that just a little bit. I mean, nothing like that. I mean, if we can ever get to where we're cranking out a few knives a week, that would be cool.
So to kind of piggyback on that, this is one of my questions. Is CNC in your future? Not necessarily in your shop, but it possibly could be in your shop or outsourcing?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, if nothing else, I would like to be able to write the code for my own parts and send it out so I know that I'm getting exactly what I want, and not relying on somebody else trying to tell them and then them decipher the bullshit that's coming out of me. And I'm just not big on farming stuff out, man. It always comes back to bite you in the ass in the end, one way or another.
It for sure can.
Mm-hmm. I mean, seriously. I mean, no matter how good a dude is, shit happens. And sometimes that's going to leave you in the lurch. And I don't like being in the lurch, period. If I'm in the lurch, I want it to be because I fucked up. And I can do whatever to the motherfucker who caused it, which is me.
And let's be honest, we don't do what we do and have the kind of mental anguish we do without a little bit of control problems. We want to control the product.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. I'm proud of you, man. That's like,
I'm proud and envious. I think it'd be so much fun to go and be like, oh, this is the right way to do this. This is that shit you've been struggling with that you half-ass can do. This is how you're supposed to do it.
I would love to know how to actually use a lathe properly.
I'm learning. I'm trying.
Yeah.
You're kicking ass, dude. Props to you.
Man, a long way to go, but we got a good start.
Yeah. Journey of 1,000 miles and all that crap.
Yep. One step at a time.
It seems fun and invigorating it's got to be just like opening up some creative juices too, and being like, they have the confidence to kind of do some of that machining to be like, okay, I can do this now. I can step up and trust machining. Cause that's one thing that I am not good at, is trusting the numbers always, cause if you have the right setup and the right,
Ever?
Well, as far as
trusting the number,
as far as like machining goes, there's some very cool shit you can do as long as you trust your setup and you trust your numbers and the math. You'll get what you want every time. It's
nerve-wracking when that bit comes flying down and you're like, is it going to stop or not?
But even some of the, the cool, manual machining stuff, but I just have a hard time trusting. I'm always like taking it off and measuring and, checking and stuff when, the witness and all that shit should tell you exactly what you are doing. And when you get to that level, like I think you will get to, it can open up some doors.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're probably going to do here, Sean and I have talked about this a little bit, and this is a little teaser for it, but Sean and I are going to record some mini-sodes about, what do we want to call it, Sean?
Back to school.
Back to school. So we're going to do a couple of mini-sodes, maybe several, depending on how things go, talking about Sean's experience and going back to school and what it means to his knife making and kind of where he thinks it's going to take him, and maybe follow along that path for a little while. So I think that'd be very interesting to do. So we won't dive into it anymore here, but I think it's a cool thing. And I don't know, maybe because of what I do at work, but, I'm a firm believer in the whole idea that you have to have a plan, right? There's a plan. You're best served by doing things that are a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's cool, right? This kind of stuff can sometimes help you understand the steps, and they might not be the steps that you thought of before because maybe you didn't even think of them, right?
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, Mark.
Okay.
All right. You just talked about your job, and you've talked about that in the past. And one of the things that I've always thought is kind of cool is you've always got to drive some of the cooler cars, and not just GM cars. And I thought I would ask what you think not was the coolest, but the most fun car to drive. And then is there a car that you would like to drive that you haven't?
Oh, that's a good question. Most fun car to drive. I can think of three. So once upon a time, I don't even know what generation it is. People that care about Mazda RX-7s will crucify me for not knowing this particular version, but I would say sometime in the 90s, there was a Mazda RX-7 that was a twin turbo. So it had a big turbo and a small turbo.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that vehicle as part of some competitive evaluation work that we were doing. And it happened to be a manual transmission car. And so the place I worked was mostly automatic transmission work. So there weren't a lot of people interested in this vehicle. It was for a very specific project that was going on. And I ended up borrowing the car for a little while, and I didn't have really high expectations because it was a little small coupe kind of car. And it ended up being a very, very entertaining vehicle to drive because, the two turbo thing, there was like a very distinct handoff. The small turbo worked at lower RPM, and so it gave you better low end performance because it would spin up very quickly, and then it would hand off to the big turbo, and there was sort of like this little sag in between, and so it had this staged torque kind of feel, and that made for a really, really fun little car to drive, and it was lightweight and handled great, and it had this crazy, like, oh, this car is accelerating pretty well. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, it would take off. And that was very fun. So
now, was that like a second generation where they were like a little bigger and more rounded? With the pop-up
this is
lights?
Like, I'd have to go to the Google machine to figure that out. But it was, like I said, mid 90s, early 90s era time frame.
Oh, that's going to be a third gen then.
Did it have that?
Yeah, like it almost had like a little third door or something weird or something like that.
Did it have that funky rotary engine in it?
Oh yeah, rotary engine for sure. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, which was some neat history because I work for this large automaker whose initials are G and M, and we had a rotary engine project in the factory that was attached to the engineering center that I worked at. Was actually tooled up to build a rotary engine for production for that company. And that never made it to production due to emissions issues and some other things, fuel economy stuff. But there's some really cool history there where there was supposed to be a General Motors or Chevy rotary engine that never actually made it into production. So
that would have been crazy.
That was another kind of interesting twist about that car was like, oh, wow. This is what we were kind of planning to do, to the point that there were actually people in the office area, engineers that had rotors which are the kind of these crazy big triangle, rounded triangle shaped.
Yeah, that's a really weird motor.
That are there instead of pistons. They had rotors basically as bookends on their desk.
That'd be so cool.
From the original rotary engine project. Yeah, which is pretty wild. So yeah, that RX-7 was really fun because it was twin turbo. That was really neat. I probably shouldn't talk about another one. My favorite GM car to drive from my job.
Come on.
From my job is the C6 Z06 Corvette.
Yeah.
Because it had this LS7 engine, which is an all aluminum 427 dry sump engine, so very much a race car motor from the factory, and it was a Corvette, so it's this kind of refined sports car-ish thing. But it was very hot rod. The car at idle would shake and shudder at a stoplight to the point that the mirrors were a little blurry sometimes. And it had a big top end hit. So at like 3,000 or 3,500 RPM at wide open throttle, the thing would kind of come unglued and made this beautiful, beautiful music. And it would break the tires loose when it came up on the cam. I mean, it was a very fun car to drive, and it was only available as a manual transmission. So that was a project that we worked on. And if I could pick one out of the lineup, as a very generous retirement present for myself, it would be a C6 probably, just because I think that car was a riot.
No,
it sounded like a street rod, drove like a street rod, but it would also just destroy lots of vehicles on the track too for road course stuff. So very cool.
Now in our conversations in the past, the new Camaro, like the latest Camaros, I think it's the RS, is that the one, like the higher end Camaro?
Yeah,
correct. It seems like that one you said is very fun and very easy to drive fast.
Yeah, the current real fast Camaro is called the ZL1. So an old designation from the 60s. Today it's a supercharged V8. But yeah, the Camaros and Corvettes, they're very they're deceivingly fast vehicles. They make the driver feel like Ayrton Senna. They make you feel like you're a boss from a driving perspective. There are a lot of electronic controls that make your life better and let you do things like hang the car slightly sideways, and it just stays there. It doesn't go crazy and put you in the ditch. So yeah, they're a lot of fun to drive, and the new Camaro stuff is fun.
A weird one you said was fun was, I think Camaro's come out with a 4-cylinder now, right?
Yeah.
The turbo. And you said it's really light and really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple years ago, or within the last couple years, we released this version of the Camaro. The base Camaro has a 2-liter turbo, 4-cylinder, which is kind of weird to think about, but
yeah, messes with my mind.
Yeah, right. A Camaro with a 4-cylinder. It's weird to think about, but
I had a Firebird with a 4-cylinder in the 80s and it sucked.
Yeah.
But
this one doesn't suck. It's a turbo. It's a couple hundred horsepower and
really light.
It's lightweight. It handles great. They're fun little cars. There's a track version of it that has all the cooling system stuff and suspension stuff to make it a great track car. And I've seen them do very well at SCCA autocross events and other stuff. And they're very fun to drive. They're, once upon a time, if you had a V6 Camaro, it was sort of like the chump car, right? Like you couldn't afford a V8 car too. Yeah. So this is not like that. I mean, it sounds like it. It sounds like it would be slow, but it's actually a really fun car to drive.
Tom, listen to Garth Brooks and his sad Firebird.
Right.
No, it was in my Camaro, dude. But I actually like my Camaro. I had an 89 V6 5-speed, and it did. Nice. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It wasn't. I wanted a V8. I lusted after a V8, but I didn't have one.
Now, Mark, do you ever think like a 1973 situation will come around again? not exactly like an oil, shortage type thing, but I keep thinking we're going towards more electric, more environmental type of stuff. Yet you guys are pumping out some really badass cars, and it seems like the industry keeps getting allowed to make faster and cooler cars. And I keep thinking, when are they going to make you guys stop? I'm kind of scared that is going to go away again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, you're right to be scared. And this is my very unofficial personal opinion, but yeah, I mean, we're in a very golden age, right? Where there are legitimate 700 horsepower, 600 horsepower cars out there that you can go buy for, they're not cheap, but surprisingly cheap kind of money compared to what it once, not very long ago. To get a 700 horsepower car, you had to spend, $500,000 or something crazy. So, or build a custom or a street rod or something. And so, yeah, I think we're very much in a golden age of muscle car, hot rod kind of stuff. And I think depending on where fuel economy and emissions regulations go, the end is near.
Yeah. Well, it's just like,
I'll just put it that way.
It's like we're seeing like this American muscle car kind of race going again. It's like a 60s sort of resurgence of, and it seems like maybe a little competition, kind of like back in the day sort of thing. Kind of fun.
Very much.
Like, I'll up my horsepower, and I'm like, and I keep waiting for that shoe to drop and be like, you guys are getting away with it. And it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I think at the same time, if you look at most of the base models, which they're V6s that actually do pretty good gas mileage, and they're still getting pretty decent performance out of them.
Oh yeah, I mean
they're 300 horsepower sixes.
It's completely different than back in the day, but I'm just saying it seems like they're getting away with a lot of cool cars these days, a lot of cool muscle cars.
Yeah, I guess on behalf of my friends that work on engine things, I'll say there's an incredible amount of engineering and creativity that goes into the get away with part. It takes a ton of work to quote get away with it, right? I mean, if you think about where we are from an emissions and fuel economy perspective today compared to, say, even the 80s or early 90s time frame, the emissions levels are so much lower, right? The cars are so clean today compared to that time frame, let alone the 60s, right? Which, I mean, they're light years ahead from an emissions perspective and a fuel economy perspective, to Tom's point. But like, for example, the one Tom asked about, right? This 4-cylinder track package kind of car. It's 275 horsepower.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the, if you think
in
to
the 60s, they didn't have that.
Well, you had to get big stuff to get there in the 60s.
Yeah. Displacement had to be up there.
even in the late 80s, early 90s time frame, like the IROC Camaro era, right? A 200 horsepower car was huge, right? The notchback Mustang, the Mustang GT of the day, that was sort of like the affordable budget favorite for muscle car stuff of the era, was like 200 or 205 horse. So the idea that the 4-cylinder, right, the
5-liter,
the base motor in a 2-liter turbo makes 275 horsepower and, can do crazy stuff like 5.1 to 60, shit like that, right? 13 second quarter mile. Who knew that there would be a 13 second quarter mile car that was a 4-cylinder turbo Camaro? No one would believe you, right? That was possible. And it meets an emission standard that's much tighter and produces fuel economy that is surprisingly good. So
I just had to get a new car. I got a Honda Civic Si.
Oh my God.
Dude, I'm not kidding, but it's just what you're saying. I got the SI, so it's got a 6-speed, but $24,000 is sticker price. If you pay everything, it does 28 and 38. it's got a 1.5 liter motor and it has 205 horsepower.
Right.
It's fun to drive. You know?
Not as fun as a Camaro.
No, but yeah. I mean, I've got kids in college. I needed the cheapest fun car I could purchase. So
98 Cavalier.
Yeah.
There you go.
that was
98?
reliable.
98 Cavalier. Most fun car you can drive.
The War Wagon.
Well, the War Wagon's for special fun to drive, but any Cavalier's pretty fun to drive.
Now, question: 98 Cavalier with the Domino's pizza hubcaps. You know the ones I'm talking about?
I know the ones you're
Had
talking
that weird,
Well, yeah.
little weird square on it.
For sure, to your point, Michael, we're in this very weird time where on one side of the spectrum, we have this crazy, unprecedented. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. When you have 11-second quarter mile factory cars, right, that you can just walk in and buy, and right out of the gate, it's that fast or whatever, 10-second cars, crazy stuff.
Demon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that, Tom.
Nah.
Crazy stuff, right? Really, really
I thought
fast.
we were talking about the fast one. Sorry.
Oh.
I'm stabbing
I mean, it's so
myself with
fast they had to outlaw it, but I mean,
I'm stabbing myself with a Bubba Felcher pen right now. Yeah, there's the idea that there's that kind of stuff, right? Like literally 6 or 7 horsepower cars, and at the same time, stuff like I just talked about, 275 horsepower base car, right? The affordable version of a track car, and plug-in cars that use zero gasoline. We're in a very super wide bandwidth time, and I think it's very interesting to see. And if fuel economy and emissions regulations continue in the direction that they've been headed, which I think they are super likely to, then you're going to see eventually those 700 horsepower cars go away. Now they might be cars that are equivalent performance that are 300 horsepower with a bunch of electrification helping.
I'm just telling you that a stripped down Tesla is kicking everything's ass on. Those things are fast.
Stripped down would be an overstatement, but yeah. I mean,
no, I'm talking they pulled
right.
all the interior.
Yeah,
like
define kicking everyone's ass on that one.
Street racing, they're tearing up stuff, man.
Yeah, I've watched the videos.
There's actually a really interesting twist to that whole thing about the idea of electric drag racing, and it's weird to think about, but I think it's fascinating. The way torque is delivered in an electric motor is kind of crazy. So
what would be the one you would like to drive? No holds bar. You don't have to choose GM.
I don't.
So you want to drive the Dodge Demon? What?
No.
I know. Yeah, but what would you like to drive for fun?
There are some supercar arena kind of vehicles out there that are, like I said, they're hybrid-ish vehicles, right? That have partially electric, partially fuel fired. I think that stuff has, I think they do. I think that stuff is really cool. I've not experienced that, and I would really like to, because I think the beauty of that kind of stuff is, in the end, and sometimes people forget about this, cars are about perception, right? They're about how they make you feel, not unlike knives or guitars or whatever, right? And I think American people in particular find cars to be like an expression of their personality. And when you get into some of the technology stuff, whether it's boosted engines like turbos or superchargers or both, or electrified vehicles that have boost from electric power, they present interesting opportunities where you can maybe the gas engine has a little less torque. You could fill it in with power from some other source. Yeah, that stuff's fascinating to me, because I've seen so many cases where a car was loved or hated because of perception. And it's pretty cool to see people react to some of the things that are out there. We look a lot at what our competitors are doing and some things that we're doing ourselves. And there's all kinds of craziness, right? There's vehicles that pipe in sound that cancels out sounds you don't want to hear, rumbles, booms, and annoying stuff, right? Lots of companies have been doing that for a long time.
I'll tell you what, I love the rumble sound. I had a Dodge Durango, man.
Yeah, there's.
I just always was stomping on the gas.
Well, that's the thing. There's good rumble, and then I assure you, there's really annoying rumble, or droning sounds, or like I've been in lots of performance vehicles, certainly modified performance vehicles, where someone changed exhaust or put a turbo on something it didn't previously, or whatever. And they sound great at idle, or they sound great around town, but you get it on the freeway and sometimes they make sounds that make you want to jump out the window at speed, right? They're terrible.
Yeah.
Droning, nasty, ugly sounds. And with technology, I would say all major auto manufacturers today in certain vehicles listen for sounds that are displeasing, and they send cancellation signals through your stereo to make your life better, right?
That's pretty crazy.
It adds noise cancellation, right? I mean, active noise cancellation is a thing, and I think every major automotive manufacturer uses it in various cases. And then take it to the next level, which is, oh well, we can make you hear less of the sound you dislike. How about if we help you hear more of the sound that you do like? And that happens too, and lots of companies are doing that. So all of that stuff goes to that idea that it's supposed to make you enjoy the experience more. It's supposed to help you feel better about what's going on. And
I love it.
It's almost, in some weird way, it's a little bit more and more like video games all the time. But in the end, if it makes people happy, then great, right?
Yep.
It's okay.
Cool.
So the car you want to drive is a 63 Max Wedge?
63 Wedge with a trans brake, because I'm going to be on 2 wheels, baby.
God damn, that'd be fun.
I know. Wouldn't that be a riot? Yep. 4,500 RPM on the trans brake and the stutter box. Bam!
Speaking of that was one of those oddities that was like, what was the horsepower and displacement? They were real close for 1963.
Yeah, 63, 64. That was kind of
They were like a 420 something, but with like 400 horsepower, which was like real crazy.
Right. 426, 425 horsepower, 427, 425. Yeah.
God, man.
That was the heyday.
Yeah.
And in the end, that's where we are today, right? We're the next peak of that wave.
Well, you're pushing past it. The displacement, you're pushing your horsepower past the displacement. And this was very much the opposite in the 60s. To find them that close then was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Heavy breathing with assistance like blowers and turbos. That's what's making it work.
This whole show has been not very knife related.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I've got some more knife questions.
I got one for Tom.
Okay.
So we know from watching Tom's the man when it comes to like Facebook live feed and which hair metal band I'm listening to today and that kind of shit, right? So
right. Okay.
He does a very nice job of kind of grooming the whole social media scene and keeping people up to speed with what's happening in the shop. But what's very clear to the casual observer is there are approximately 1.7 million knives in progress at any given time, or could be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I have to ask, as someone who works at a company that manufactures things for a living, how do you manage that, Tom? How's that work in the shop? Is there like a whiteboard that everybody looks at? Because I know you got people that help you out with stuff and do certain things in the shop. I would like to think that it's very well orchestrated, and Tom is like a conductor at the symphony orchestra, but I'm sure it's slightly more chaotic.
It's changed over the last 2 years as we've hired additional people. Used to be I kept everything in my head. I still keep 99% of everything in my head. I know who's getting what and where it's at most of the time. But, well, maybe not 99, maybe 95, 90.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Well, I do, like on the orders and stuff, I I do keep most of that in my head as far as what it is. But as far as like whose it is, but we've gone to a system now. We use QuickBooks actually is what we're using. QuickBooks has a way I can put orders in, and basically we put orders in, I print it out. I have a printout. We have a tray system. What you're seeing that's actually being worked on is about, I don't know, 10 to 15% of what's going on in the shop. I don't show most of the stuff because then I get the, when is it done? Where's mine? Is that mine? Type stuff, which I don't mind at all. Don't misunderstand, but I have to keep it. I can't show everything that's doing because it just doesn't work. So we've got a tray system, and basically we work in the trays. I can transport them around the shop, but once they get on the bench, then that's when I start including stuff in the work in progress stuff. And it's working much better because I kept everything in my head, and I did let some stuff drop between the cracks, and I made some people very upset, and I'm sorry for that. But some people, most people were very understanding, and if something fell between the cracks, I'd do what I could to get it hooked up and, make them a knife. But now we still have stuff drop between the cracks, but it's much less. And I feel like, I'm able to keep less brain process on it maybe. Right. And, just not have to manage it quite as much. But yeah, basically, we have two different things going on in the shop at any time. There's always knives that I'm building to sell. And then we're always doing some order stuff too. So we try to keep it around 50-50. So that way, we don't overload our page with sales and we're still moving stuff to customers. And it just seems to be a system that's working pretty good right now.
I don't know if this was what Mark was asking, but how do the employees know what they are working on that day? What system do you have to be like, this is what we have? How do they know what they're supposed to do that day?
Like say Mark comes in the morning and, he's like, hey, what's going on? Right. Recently we've been doing a lot of shop, upgrading. And so Mark has, been doing a lot of that, but at the same time, he may come in and I'll be like, hey, I got this, and this for you to do. So I usually line them out every day as far as what's going on. As far as what needs to be done, like Mark will come in. I'm like, hey, I got these 10 blades. I need these handles cut out of this material. When you're done, come hit me. I got the next thing for you to do. So yeah, I pretty much line them out on projects, and some of the projects may take 3 or 4 days for them to finish, and then they just come back.
Well, how does the CNC, how do you get that into your workflow? Are you trying to keep that running all the time, or how's that working?
So yeah, I mean, the whole point is we're trying to keep it running. Do we keep it running all the time? No, but we're doing a pretty good job with that right now. So basically what we're doing with that is we're working on getting my current models into CAD and into CAM. So the first thing we're doing is blades, because usually there's a turnaround time for heat treat unless we are trying to run a project quickly, which we can heat treat in house. We have the furnaces and everything to do that. It's just not really time effective and cost effective. And so what we do is we're like right now we're working on some knives off the CNC. This is the first batch. So basically we put 5 different models in. We put the Whitetail Hunter. We put the TK11 Warney, the TK2, the Nomad, the Microchef, and the Jack Turner Special. So 6 models in, and we sent them out for heat treat. While they're out at heat treat, we started putting the handles into CAD and CAM. And as soon as they came back from heat treat, we started cutting them because we needed the heat treated blades to make sure they're fitting. And the first one, getting the handle done and everything took about a week for the first model, the TK3. And we're learning stuff like right now it's a lot of learning process. Like we're trying to figure out if we want to do liners, can we do liners? And what do we have to do to make that work? So, but yeah, so basically we just finished up the last run of handles. So we have all six blades. We've got the handles cut now. And so now we're going to move to the next project, which is going to be the Sexy Bulldogs. And we'll cut all the blades for those, get them sent out for heat treat. And then we'll start working on the CAD and CAM for the handles. And then, basically we're just trying to work in that way. Otherwise, like,
is that Sexy Bulldog the name of it, or were you just tossing in a superlative? What's the...
No, that's the name. So okay. We did the Bulldog with a longer blade, and it's like a sax type style. So it's got the almost a modified Wharncliffe with the abrupt swedge that's sharpened or can be sharpened. I modified the Bulldog to this blade profile, and we just, to differentiate it, we call it the sex. It's actually Saxy, but we just shortened it to Sexy Bulldog.
Alto
and it is kind of sexy.
Didn't turn into play there. The alto sax.
No, this was the Viking knife.
I understand. That was my dad joke of the episode.
Yeah, so dad joke. Back to the band question. Yeah, no.
It was.
Well done. Go ahead.
Fuck, it was so well crafted. So do you have a guy just for the CNC, and he knows what he's doing, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. So I've got one guy.
I'm really just
on stuff.
I'm mining for information on if I ever get somebody, because that's the one thing I always. I'm at the point where I could use somebody to help do stuff here, but I don't know what I would have them doing and whether I have enough work for them. It's sort of a chicken sort of thing.
You have enough work, and basically, so we're trying to learn the machine, right? So the first thing we did, we sat down and I was like, I think the first thing we should do is skeleton knives. So we did the Cicada, we did the Coues Deer Hunter, we did the Quest, which is a new model that was designed for the mill, and we have the first 7 sold really well, and we have like 40 more out at Heat Treat right now. And we also, so those, we learned a lot on those, because you know how it is. You're learning speeds and feeds and what bits work and all this stuff. So that was a whole learning process. And the next step was to take it to the next level of complexity. And that would be to do some of my models that I do with handles. So we have to do the blade just like it's a skeletonized knife. And then we have to craft the handles. So our next level of complexity is going to be folders. So right now we've got a stack of steel. We've got, I don't know, there's probably enough to do another 150 to 200 knives back there. And as soon as we get those cut, we're going to start making folder parts. So we're already working on that. We've got a new design that we're going to do. Hopefully we can figure it out on the mill, and we're going to cut one prototype and make sure it works. And then we're going to start cutting them. And I hope to have at least 1, maybe 2 folders off the mill, new folders for blade. That's our goal, is to bring, we're going to try to come heavy to blade. We're already starting to plan. We'd like to bring, some new stuff to blade and hopefully get people excited.
It's a solid plan right there.
But yeah, I think, and like I said, we're trying to figure this out, and it's every time it's like, the first thing that we cut was like the cicadas, and it took like 2.5 hours to cut when we do 2 at a time. It took 2.5 hours to cut 2 cicadas out. And now we've got it down where it's like, I think 15 minutes. So
yeah, buddy.
Those carbide end mills, they like to run.
Well, yeah, and it's, we're learning what we can do, what we can push, and is it better to interpolate a hole or drill a hole, or where do you need the accuracy and all this kind of stuff, and deburring and all that kind of crap. It's a hellaciously big, complex puzzle.
Have you gotten into macros yet?
No, but
yeah,
I know about them, but we are not using them at this time. But
I'm not. But I'm going.
It's kind of crazy.
I'm going to try to on the next big project. I'm going to try to get it set up and do it to it.
I mean, this tool has so much capability, and we're using probably about 5% of it.
Right.
Which is absolutely crazy, but we're learning quickly. I mean, you have to, right? I mean, there's bills to pay and all this stuff. And right now we're actually starting to get stuff off the mill that's paying the bills. We're doing stuff the rest of the way, the old way, because we still have a lot of blades, right? We're using those up. We probably got, if I had to guess, we'd probably have like 600 blades still in the shop that are made the old way, maybe a little more. And we're using those up pretty quick. But once they're used up, they're used up. And like, you know, if you look at my knives, the knives coming off the mill, we're putting rounded scallop thumb serrations in. You know, in the past we had to checker file those. And I always worried about that because it puts a stress riser in the blade, right?
Yeah, I don't like checkered.
What's that?
I've never been a big fan of it with especially with my Hamones and stuff. That was the first place it would want to crack.
Exactly. And and I don't use, you know, I'm using D2 and stuff like that. And I've never had one come back broken through there, but in theory and in fact, it is a stress riser. And if it's going to break, it's more likely to break there, and it's not as strong because of that. But by using the mill and putting in, you know, the rounded thumb grooves, it looks different. So some people were like, but it's a better product. So it's like, I know some of you guys like it the other way, but we're not going to do that anymore because it's not as good. And we're trying to make the best product we can. And we have the technology to do it. So why wouldn't we do it? You know? So yeah, I mean, we're having fun with it. And that's our process.
Tom, I think you need some kind of standardized run up before you say D2. Like, they're made from the fabulous.
Well, I mean, everybody knows that it's the best material. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't use it.
Right, right. So like I drive a car for work, right? And so like right now I'm driving an all new Buick Regal GS.
Right.
So like my Wi-Fi hotspot that my car puts out so that you can connect your phone to, that's the name of the hotspot. The all new 2019 Regal GS. So you need a tagline to hook to D2 to help your customers understand how fabulous this steel is.
Pretty amazing stuff. It's funny. It's like, is D2 the best steel? Probably not. Is it a damn good steel? Oh, yeah. But you know what's even more important is the heat treat. That's something that's not quantitative, and that's why everybody goes off on all the different steels. And I got a knife recently that I've been using that's got one of the new Wonder steels. It absolutely sucks. It doesn't hold an edge. It's not heat treated hard enough. It's been a great disappointment to me. I'm not going to name the name, but yeah. When you spend $400 for a knife and it doesn't hold an edge, it's like, what the hell?
Who did they obviously not have heat treat their steel, Birch?
Peters
heat treating.
Damn, we got to get Peters sponsorship. That's what we need.
I think they're probably having it heat treated to. Their heat treat is probably good. It's just not. It's just the specs they're giving. They're choosing a lower Rockwell number for toughness or for whatever reason. But for me, a folder is about cutting ability and not toughness. It has a hole in it and it folds. It's not. I don't need to chop with it. You know. To me, a folder should cut and hold an edge well. And if it doesn't do those two things, it's a disappointment to me.
You know what they're doing, Tom? They're choosing a lower awesomeness.
It's true.
They should just choose higher awesomeness.
It's 100%.
Pretty much what it comes down to.
Or D2. They could use
D2. One or the other.
But I've actually been using a lot of different steels right now. I'm using more Nitro V right now and Z Finite in the last few knives I'm doing, which is nitrogen steels I think are going to be one of the big things in the future of knife making.
Yeah, I do too. There's too much upside to them, and it's new. It's only going to get better.
It's brand new. Yeah, exactly. You know, right now they've got corrosion and toughness. They beat everything else, and wear resistance is good. You know, when are they going to start bumping that wear resistance upward? Yeah, I think it's the future of knives. But.
There you go. It's the future.
You heard it here first, folks.
This has been fun.
Yeah. No, I was convinced, like I have been a few times in the past, that this was going to be a disaster, and it's been an interesting conversation.
I still have like 4 questions for each of you guys.
And we didn't get to any of the listeners' questions.
Lightning round.
Lightning round.
Is there any burning questions that you guys want to ask before we kind of start heading toward the end of the show?
No, nothing that can't wait.
No, I didn't really have anything burning. A mild tingle, maybe, you know.
Little discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say again, because I sincerely appreciated this, Tom. Very cool of you to send us these pack of wood laden kitchen utilities. They're very cool little knives. Thank you very much for doing that and handling the mugs. Right.
Yeah,
so
pleasure.
Tom and his crew did a fantastic job with the Mark of the Maker Deneen mugs. So we hope everybody liked those. We got another version and color on order. So sometime, hopefully right before Blade Show, maybe ish, we'll have another round of these Mark of the Maker mugs for everybody.
Maybe we'll have them at Blade Show.
Maybe.
That'd be cool.
So we'll see how that goes. But so thanks again, Tom, for all your help with that. Let's hit the cool shit, like stuff that you saw recently that was cool. Tom, you got anything cool that you saw recently, whether it's social media or?
You know, I got one of my knives in from the guy in Slovakia. What's his name?
Oh, Jan Hafenek.
Jan. Yeah. So I got one of the knives I ordered from him, and that thing is really cool. Also, another maker sent me one of his bigger fighters, and that cat is he's hooking it up. They're good. They are spot on.
I got a sub hilt from Hafenek not very long ago, and it's really, really good.
They rock.
It's pretty fantastic. Yeah, I was very pleased with how good it is. So it makes me want to order another one. But yeah, they're really, really, really good.
I already did order another one. So let's go.
I am not surprised.
I also got some, I think, did Sean mention it or Michael, the Fat Carbon?
Yeah.
I got some of that in. That stuff is cool, man.
Dude, he's doing
really
some cool stuff. And I think he's just getting rolling.
Yeah. Thanks for the recommendation. Really good stuff. Those are the 2 cool things I've seen lately. What about you, Mark?
So one has to be just in the last couple days, John Young finished up a Stag Big Bear, and he posted some pictures on Instagram, and I wish I had not become afflicted with Big Bear disease, but that thing
You're welcome.
It's killer. Stag Big Bear. Now that a Stag Big Bear is definitely on my list, and maybe from John if I can trick him into building one for me. But else,
baby, that is hot,
isn't it? Yeah, that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It's pretty killer. And then another really cool thing I saw. There's a master engraver guy that some of our listeners will know, named David Ricardo. He's a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. He lives here in Michigan, up in the northern part of Michigan, northern lower peninsula. David has, it reminds me actually a little bit of Birch's jump from paper dolls to CNC, but Ricardo has begun to embrace technology, and he is now drawing on an iPad.
Whoa.
And so he's developing engraving designs on an iPad in a drawing tool. And he's been sharing some pictures of some of that stuff, and it is off the fucking chain.
It's really crazy.
Agreed.
Killer.
And the one with the bees. I dig that one.
Yes. Yeah. So it's really fun to watch because I know it's very challenging for him. It's a new thing. Like for all of us, right? Learning something that's outside your comfort zone is very challenging and rewarding if you let it be, or try for it to be. And so this is very much the case with David, and it's really, really fun to watch. So high five to David for stepping outside his comfort zone and and running with the ball on this. If you look on Facebook on his thing or on his Instagram, he's posting pictures.
Yeah. Ricardo Engraving is his Instagram.
Yep. Ricardo Engraving, RICCARDO. And so David's doing some really cool things, and it lets him explore some ideas, and he's working on some ways to transfer that to work and some other things. So it's really neat to see, and a great example of somebody finding a new tool to help make a traditional tool a little more effective or expand his horizons. And it's really fun to watch.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty sick, right?
Yeah, well, I got sidetracked. I was looking at this JLC Reverso. They did.
Yeah. The Reverso is killer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Plus he has on that B one, don't be biting if you ain't liking. Solid dad joke.
Hey-o!
Gotta high five that one.
You talking about the Nautilus Reverso?
Yeah, like
octopus type thing.
The Kraken.
Yeah, that looks pretty sick.
How about you, Birch? You see anything super cool in the last few weeks here?
Just kind of the normal stuff on Instagram. I did see this Salem Straub guy. I think I sent that one to you. He did like this really massive Damascus integral kind of chopper beast.
Yeah.
It's just looking at it's like, man, it's a ton of work. It's a beautiful Damascus pattern, and then to do it integrally with the bolster and just that big. It was just well done and great looking ironwood on it. A little bit of sculpting on that. It was just one of those. Yeah, it's just one of those pieces where you're like, yeah, that's good shit right there.
Yeah,
I enjoyed seeing that.
Very cool. How about you, Sean? Do you come across anything or see anything cool that you want to point at or talk about a little bit?
Man, not really. I've just been holed up. I got midterms next week. I've been trying to prep for that. I've been trying to keep my classes squared away, trying to take care of my son of a bitchin' online computer class. And that's what I've had time for.
I'll give a shout out to someone else. I don't know if I mentioned it on here, but Unique Micarta.
Yep.
I got to get some of their stuff.
I've been using quite a bit of it. Greg is the guy that does it, and really easy to deal with. And this micarta is very dense, so I really like it because I can polish it with my wheel like I normally would. Whereas with some of the other stuff, there's been a lot of voids and it discolors. This doesn't. This is very similar to working regular canvas or linen that you would get. Very, very good material.
Nice.
And some crazy stuff that you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. Like he's doing some rag stuff and twills and crosscut, and I really like it.
I think maybe you talked about that a little bit in the season 2 kickoff episode. Maybe
I may have. I've been using a lot
very
more
cool.
of it though. So
I really like that side cut green canvas. That is real pretty.
Yes,
I'll send you a picture of one I just finished. It's he calls it grass, and it is bright.
I think that's what I'm looking at. It just says 2 green hunter olive.
No, the olive is different. I've done some of the olive too.
I don't know what it is. But it just looks like cross-cut sort of linear green canvas. I don't know. That beats me.
Right.
Yeah. He does a bunch of that kind of stuff, which is super cool.
Awesome. All right. So show-wise, we got a few things going on. Well, one really, right? The Monkey Muster's coming up. So we talked about this before. I wasn't sure if the Monkey Edge guys were doing their thing, the Monkey Muster, or not, but it sounds like they are for sure at this point, and it's April 6th. So not long from now, actually. But Monkey Muster coming up pretty soon. I've not been to that show or event, but by all accounts, it's pretty fantastic. So,
now, did they skip last year?
Yeah.
Yep. They skipped last year, but they're back on this year. So
awesome.
So yeah, definitely something worth checking out. Always a good time by all appearances, and some friends of ours that have participated in that one. So if you get a chance, check out the Monkey Muster. It's in Arizona in the Metro Phoenix kind of area. So if you're out that way, check out the Monkey Muster.
Brady's a really good dude. So everything I've heard is it's a great time and a great show.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's coming up pretty soon. And then I guess after that, next thing is what, Blade Show?
Yeah. For me, it is.
Yeah, for us. I'm sure there's some smaller shows in there.
Birch just got the chills.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
I'm getting ready to set up my countdown clock. I've got my office painted and I got to screw it to the wall. It's going to be awesome.
Too
All
funny.
Right, whatever, man.
You should have had a countdown clock for the time it took you to put up this countdown clock.
Zing!
Ouch.
Suck it.
All right, so next episode will be episode 25 or season 2, episode 4. We got to pick a horse and ride it on that, I guess. I don't know. I got to decide what we're going to do there. But we're not exactly sure what we're going to do for episode 25. We have many, many options out there. Folks seem to really enjoy the interview episodes. We definitely have lots of those that we'll do this year. But if you have show topic ideas, if you're in our Facebook group or follow our Instagram, don't be shy. Let us know what you think on what we should talk about. Interview-wise, I think we have a very solid list of people lined up that, for some bizarre reason, are interested in talking with us.
It's the money. It's the money.
It's the money. The compensation that we pay all of our interview guests. Yeah, it's very compelling.
Box of little
right.
Whoa, hold on,
Right.
big spender.
Yeah. No, it's a medium Slurpee, Tom, not an extra large. Come on, man.
My bad.
Yeah. So if you have show topic ideas for topical things we could talk about, we had the Knives of the Movies and some other stuff that people really enjoyed. So if you have some other suggestions, we'd be interested to hear them. Please share them with us. And you never know, maybe we'll pick one and have an episode. have an episode is a great way to put it now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Too funny. Anything else you guys want to touch on here before we wrap things up?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, good. So one of the things that we did want to hit on here as we kind of close out the show, one, we appreciate everybody listening. We always appreciate everyone for taking hours literally out of your life to listen to us just ramble on in bizarre ways sometimes. So thank you for listening to Mark the Maker. We really appreciate your support and your participation and listenership. But there was something that happened here in the last week that we wanted to talk about. There's a friend of ours named Cliff Watkins who unfortunately passed away very suddenly. And he was a very good guy, an active participant and member of the knife community, and a friend to all of us. And I know to many of you that are listeners. And Cliff passed this past week, and we're all pretty sad about that. So as we kind of wind out the show here, we're going to leave a little moment of silence at the end of the show in honor of Cliff. His daughter put it very well when she said Cliff was the guy who liked to live life to the fullest. And there's no question that that's true. If you knew Cliff, you'll know what that means. So rest in peace, Cliffy. We miss you, man. And we'll close out the show with a little bit of quiet time for Cliff. To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Crine on the web at crineknives.net, in his Facebook group, Crine Knives, or in his Instagram account at Crine Knives. For Michael Birch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram at birchtreeblades. For myself and the Raygun Bead Project, we're on the web at raygundivision.com. We have a Facebook group called Raygun Division, or my personal Instagram at msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or some discussion about the show itself, you can find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram at Mark of the Maker. Last but not least, the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. Thanks for listening.